Hello and welcome back inside the Part from A for podcast number 872. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do tonight. For your kind consideration, we have our very own Paul Charsley. We're going to be talking to him about all kinds of things. Not just F1, but yes, we will cover F1, but we're going to talk about Daytona, IMSA, all kinds of fun stuff. So before doing that, of course, I've got to introduce my guest, and that means I get to introduce Paul.
Ripped from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charsley, the International.
Hello, Paul.
Hello, Todd.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
It's been better.
Good.
But yeah. It's all moving along here. Halfway through our week, 10 days at Daytona. So some ups and downs, I would say.
Oh, that's good. That's good. We're recording, and if there's any hiccups in the recording, it's because Paul is sat in the motorhome, in the driver's motorhome, and on Wi-Fi. So
helmets.
Apologies for any audio or video snafus that we might have during the recording. But he's live from Daytona at the track in Daytona, getting ready for the Daytona 24, the Rolex 24. Just came off the hills of a serious practice session, multiple practice sessions, and ultimately qualifying for the Daytona 24. And all that being said, Paul, I guess let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? Qualifying. That may not have gone the way you'd hoped.
To say the least.
The logical next... Yeah, right. Didn't qualify where you wanted to. So the logical next question about the Rolex 24 is you look at qualifying. It's a 24-hour race. We know that qualifying is one thing, but 24 hours is another. So the logical next question I got heading into the Rolex 24 next weekend is your long run pace. How does it look? And is it possible to nail down the issues of if I was to say, oh, well, the qualifying is tough, but the long run pace, hopefully it looks good. Is it possible to nail down the issues that you're having? Is it the new GT car? Is it the BOP? Is it setup issues? What are your thoughts so far coming out of the Roar and Quali?
Yeah. Ultimate pace, we weren't able to show it during the qualifying. Obviously, we had some technical issues that kind of put us out, really. We struggled. We thought we'd have a chance at being in the top 10 for sure. And that didn't quite happen. We just didn't, the car just wasn't functioning 100%, and we made the best we could do. One car unfortunately didn't really get a lap at all. The other car got a decent lap, but not as good as maybe it possibly could have. Qualifying for a 24-hour race is not the be-all and end-all, or it doesn't mean anything, but it's always something nice to carry momentum for the team and the drivers going into the race, that you got a good spot, and it's just kind of a little ego boost for you, but ultimately, it's not really going to affect whether you win or lose the 24-hour race, right? So, and usually our team doesn't really focus on qualifying generally, because one lap is one lap, and it doesn't really, we really always focus on long run pace, getting to know the tire. This year we've got a new car, even though it looks similar to the old car, it's like 70% different. And everyone has to deal with a new tire. So as I've always said, is you always want to just change one thing at a time, right? So if you got a new car, you'd want to be on a tire, or vice versa. But right now we're changing everything. So setups and everything we knew from the old car, they give you a clue as to where you should go next, but there's no set up. We're basically starting with a blank page to a degree, just with ideas of how things progress with the old car. So it's exciting. It's a lot of work, a lot of late nights and lots of engineering, looking through every single data piece to try and figure it out. But overall, I would say our long run pace is pretty good. The new rules limit tire usage. We've seen that in Formula One. So you have to make tires last more than a stint. If you choose to make tires last, 4 tires last for over 2 stints, or you start going with right side tires, left side tires, that kind of thing. But ultimately, there's not enough tire allocation for you to, every time you pit, to change 4 new tires. So we've been testing that, trying to see how long we can get these new tires, these new Michelins, which are really good tires, honestly. They're very good. So that it's a big improvement from the old ones. So they have longevity into them anyway. But our car's always been kind of good that way. So we're going to have to really lean on long run pace to keep us in the hunt at the beginning. Obviously, the qualifying doesn't mean where we start is whatever, but we want to be far enough ahead where hopefully we can fight at the end and try. And we'll still keep evaluating the car as we go along in the race, because we've really technically only got 3 more sessions to go till we start the race, because qualifying's over. So we'll keep working hard to try and figure out the car, but we'll get the car so it can be adjusted during the race, kind of find that middle ground. So if we go one way or up or down, and we can make we'll try and make those adjustments early in the race, and then hopefully fight to have a real tiger at the end.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've got hopefully, obviously, as you said, long run pace hopefully is there. You're going for that long run pace. The Michelin's, your car hasn't been, even last year wasn't known for chewing tires off that car. So, so hopefully that new tire delivers a performance, but that car is still easy on those tires, makes most effective use of that. That hopefully it would give you advantage. I was wondering, Paul, when you got down to the practice sessions, it's been a winter break for you guys, coming in, knowing that hopefully the tire performance is there. Hopefully that long run pace is there. Did you spend a lot of time, Paul, just, knocking the dust off, working on your driver changes, working on wheel changes, working on that pit stop mechanics to maybe give you another edge too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, every little bit counts. This year is more competitive than ever. And, you're going to see yellows. There's a lot of pit stops during yellows. And if you can, save half a second somehow, that could be 2 positions on track. So every little bit counts. So really focused heavily on the fueling, making sure that's right. Making sure the driver changes are correct, making sure that, we've got new drivers here. So they're having to figure out how to get around each other. We've got some new pit crew here. So yeah, everyone's just trying to find their feet, but yeah, definitely focus on that. That can turn a race around big time on a good side or a bad side, right?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point about the field. I looked at the list of drivers in IMSA for this season, and quite honestly, and you know this far better than I do, it literally is a who's who list of some incredibly talented drivers in just about every car, Paul. With that much talent at the wheel, it really must come down to the cars, the team, the strategy, and really luck at some point. How's the team approaching what may be one of the most competitive season you guys have had so far with just the sheer driver talent?
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah. I mean, I know most drivers love racing in IMSA because of the tracks. I mean, everyone wants to race Le Mans, but over and above that, IMSA has some great tracks that all the drivers from all over the world want to be on. And with some added investment from different manufacturers, that's brought in a whole level of drivers too, right? And GT racing, even see it in the LMP2 and certainly in the prototypes as that builds on. So yeah, the level is intense. It makes it fun. It makes it exciting. I mean, I'm more excited about this season than ever. Not because I think, we can just walk around with a championship, because it's going to be such a hard fight and you can measure yourself against literally the best in the world right now.
Yeah.
Drivers, managers, cars, pit stop crew, everything is going to be measured right here. So it's what we all want when we're super competitive minded people, right? We want to pit ourselves against the best. And for sure, there's no question that the best is here right now. So it's cool. You walk along, you see the Mustangs pull out. They got 3 cars here. They got my brother's Multimatic guys are running those cars, so that's a nice little something to think about during the race, how my brother's group is doing. But yeah,
it's Charsley v. Charsley.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, there's so many manufacturers, so many great drivers that have been brought into this series, some for the first time, just because of that investment. And yeah, it's like no other with how many manufacturers are racing in the GT ranks. It's nuts. But it's great, and we're really, Porsche are strong again now. So it's going to be a fight every week. So we're relishing it. But this is the big one, right? We won it last year.
Yeah.
Boy, a repeat would be great. Might not look too great right now, but it doesn't mean we're giving up on it. That's for sure.
Yeah. I was going to ask you. I had texted you. I said, "Hey, how's your brother's Mustangs look?" And you said they look really good. And I was going to ask you who looks. I know qualifying is a one thing, but who in your mind looks pretty darn quick in that GTD Pro and GTD camp? Who looks pretty quick? The Porsches seemed quick to me.
Yeah,
but who do you see?
The Porsches, the Lexus, the Mustangs didn't qualify well, but they've been quick all the time. And the Lamborghinis, although they're dealing with an Evo car, so maybe they're having similar growing pains right now. But anyone coming into the field with a year under their belt without a changing car, I think have a slight advantage right now. And the Porsche definitely did that. They struggled last year, but they've figured it all out. BMWs are strong. I mean, it's the Mercedes maybe not as strong as they were last year, but hopefully we'll keep them behind us.
Yeah, no doubt. We talk about the number of races in F1 all the time. When we think about Formula One and all the races, it's 21, 22, 23 races. And we always talk about the grind that has. But when I think of about the heart of racing, your team, your resources and the amount of racing in multiple series, you've got a Le Mans program with a Valkyrie, you've got, you're racing at Bathurst, you've got IMSA. When I think about the number of multiple series that you guys are in, how taxing is that to your team and you personally? And how do you approach resource management and logistics to engage such a crazy schedule across multiple series? You're talking about GT3, Le Mans, last year GT4, SRO. How do you, I feel bad for the F1 guys with, they're gone for months at a time, but boy, you guys have got a grind this year.
Yeah, it is a grind. I'm doing way over 20 races this year myself personally. So I don't love every bit of it, but you got to measure yourself and know, there's some of the WEC races I maybe could go to, but it's like, you just got to pace yourself, right? Ian's involved in everything. It's harder for him than anything, but even there, we've got so many things going on. We've got 3 clashes with WEC versus IMSA. So, he can't be everywhere at the same time. So, we just got to plan it out. We do have some crossover, but the team's getting bigger. So a lot of people are going to be more specialized on the IMSA side. We've got people that just do IMSA, got people that just do SRO. We've got in Europe a whole different group of people, primarily, from the Aston Martin side. So it's difficult. You look at the year, and I think I sent it to you, my calendar for the year, and you look at it, it's kind of nuts. But you gotta, if you didn't love it, if you didn't love it, you probably hate it, But I look forward to every race weekend. But you do get tired sometimes. But then you come to the track and you hear an engine fire up, and you're just like, okay, here we go. Let's just do it and try and take each weekend. Don't think about the future. Don't think about the past. Just get to that race and deal with it and try and be as successful as you can, and then move on and try and when you do get some downtime, try and make it fun. Try and do something just to not go back to the house and start banging it out. There's always work in between races, but I've tried to pace myself and try and get away from it completely. You can't go away for 2 weeks in a row, but a day here or a day there, just to kind of wipe the slate clean a little bit and start again. So you got that energy when you get there. In my position, you got to have the energy that kind of bleeds into the team, right? So you can't go in there going, "Oh, geez, I'm really tired, guys." So But as I said, I love what I do, so that helps lift you up every morning when the alarm clock goes off.
Yeah. As you get home, it's like, oh, I do have children.
Yes.
I have 2 children.
Yeah, they take a second look at me and say, "Who's this guy?" Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And the big rumor is, everybody wants to know, Paul, how was dinner with Brad Pitt? I heard that his movie and their filming crew were at Daytona this week.
Yeah, they're here, and people know they're here, and they're actually just one garage down from us. So, we know when Brad arrives because all of a sudden there's just a crowd around the garage there, and they're doing a lot of filming. They're doing it primarily in the night. So as soon as we stop, their cars hit the track, and they infiltrate into some of the practice sessions somehow.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing. But yeah, people know Brad Pitt's here, that's for sure. But sometimes I get thought that people think I'm Brad, but then they quickly come to reality.
I thought all the gaggle of people that started going around there, I thought they were all coming to see Mario Farnbacher.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So and then IMSA crowd. We talked about it. The Drive to Survive has kind of helped IMSA. And all other racings get more notoriety and crowd presence. But now with Brad, I don't even know what's going to happen next week. You can't barely move as it is. So who knows?
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it should be interesting, obviously, for all of you guys listening. If you're newer to the podcast, just as a recap, obviously, Paul is the sporting manager for the Heart of Racing Aston Martin team in IMSA. They'll be racing the Valkyrie at Le Mans. They're doing Bathurst, SRO. So this is a fantastic series. And I'm not joking, folks. Go look at the roster and the team driver lineups for IMSA this year. It is a who's who. Every one of those drivers, almost every one of those drivers is just world class. I'm sure Paul could tell us a few that aren't, but
I'll be.
But all that being said, great drivers. Paul, Heart of Racing expanded their driver lineup. They got some great, like I just mentioned, Mario Farnbacher and others that are on board. Gunn,
world champions, for sure. Yep.
Yeah, Alex Riveros and some great drivers. So watch this space. Next week, his season starts at the Rolex 24 Daytona. So make sure F1 isn't here yet. And if you're looking for serious racing, this is it. And then, so you're going to do Rolex next weekend. And then do you go to, is Sebring next after that? Or is there something?
No, for me, it's Bathurst. So in 2 weeks.
That's right.
2 weeks I go to Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Okay. I forgot. Yeah. I knew you were going to Bathurst. I just couldn't remember the timing. So,
yep.
But yeah, watch this space, folks, and watch this series and cheer for Heart of Racing. So it's pretty exciting.
Please do.
Let's talk about some F1 news a little bit, Paul, because Grace and I had the opportunity to discuss the moves at Haas with Gunther Steiner being let go from Haas. I think most of our listeners that are regular listeners would be very keen. They heard Grace and I's opinion on it, but I'm sure they'd be very keen to get your thoughts on the situation, your thoughts on the new team boss and what you think is going on, or what you think about what is going on over at Haas.
Yeah. It's it's a long time coming. I know you've been calling for it for a long while, right? Gunther. Yeah. I think to some degree, he became too big for his role in the team. His whole Drive to Survive persona, that's got a rub on Gene Haas, I would think. Is it the Gene Haas F1 or is it the Gunther show? And that's one thing if you're doing well, right?
Yep.
Toto gets a lot of PR, as does Christian Horner, but you're winning races, winning championships. Yeah. But when you're the last team on the grid, that might grate you after a while. And I know they were good buddies and everything, but sometimes it takes something. You got to change. They had to change something. We talk about money, but there's something missing in their processes. They weren't making progress. Even their upgrades didn't do what they thought. So there's something lost in the system there. But they hired within, which should make it a little easier, the transition, because rather than bringing in someone new who had absolutely no idea how they were doing it before. I'm sure, when anyone that works for anybody else, they see, if they're, lower in the ranks, they see how things are run. Well, if I ran the show, this is how I would do it. I would do,
Yeah.
and maybe the transition could be smooth, but it's still going to take more, I think. It really, to some degree, it would take a real ripping up the sheet, and that's maybe not going to happen. So, but it's not going to change overnight also, right? Things just don't change overnight in Formula One. And if there's not something radically changing within the team with investment or whatever, then I'm not sure the results are going to change that swiftly, but could be Gunther was holding the whole show up. That does happen, things funnel through somebody and they become a stopping point if that's the way they've structured it. And maybe a new structure. We saw it at Williams, a new structure, a new man, calling the shots, changed things quite quickly, even though they couldn't really radically change new parts and everything. Just literally looking at systems and processes can change the performance of a car as well as, a wing upgrade, for say.
Yeah, it's that concept, Paul, of, and I think Williams is a pretty good example of this, of not being reactionary, but moving from a tactical strategy to a long-term strategy. What's strategic versus tactical, and keeping the doors over and the lights on is tactical. Investing in the right areas for a long-term strategic recovery for Williams is certainly what James Vowles brought him. And I'm curious. I mean, even with Komatsu coming in and taking Gunther's place, given the car is mainly completed, designed. I think you're right. I don't see this changing overnight. I think this is going to be a long-term plan, and therefore Gene probably should, pop some popcorn and settle in for a long-term plan. And the question is, can Komatsu deliver that engineering-focused long-term, strategy versus tactics? Yeah,
and is Gene patient? And is Gene the problem? Is Gene's outlook on the process? We knew Dorilton we didn't know who they were, and sometimes you can have investment, but if those investors don't understand how the system works and what a greater investment equals results kind of process is, if you just think, well, you just need to work better, with the resources, this is all you get, do make some magic. It's nearly not possible in Formula One, for sure. It's hard enough in other racing, but Formula One, it's nearly an impossible feat to do that without continuing improvements and finances and structures and equipment and everything.
Yeah. When you juxtapose Haas and Williams and you look at those two scenarios, there's no doubt that Williams were a team reduced to basically covering costs and at least breaking even to provide a lifestyle for the owners and a continuation of their legacy and retaining their employees and that kind of thing. When Dorilton, with them investing a few years ago and then James Vowles coming on board and Pat Fry, the investment has increased in the team. And there's no doubt that James has suggested it's going to take that investment into the budget cap levels for a long-term plan to realize significant performance gains over time. And most likely a gain that won't be fully evident maybe until the 2026 season with all the technical regulation changes. It's a change, though, in their approach from chasing, as I said, chasing their tails, putting out fires and scrambling to make ends meet, to one of more strategic versus tactical that should pay dividends with James and Pat at the helm. And when you juxtapose that with Haas and Gene's expectations realistic in that he wants to see some progress, he's got limited resources, wants to see that progress before he puts more money in, or at least that's the suggestion from the articles I've read about him. And, this can't be just an F1 phenomena. If you consider things like the series you're in IMSA and WEC and the amount of investment from LMP all the way to GTD, you've known and know a lot of owners in both series. How do you see their approach? Are they reluctant to invest ahead of revenue, or do most of them know that it takes that investment to have a chance to perform or even achieve a revenue stream in IMSA or WEC? I guess what I'm trying to figure out why Gene is from what I've read in articles, seemingly doesn't want to invest until he sees some results. And I got to think in IMSA or WEC, those teams I have to think that they kind of get the plot even in that series. Am I off on that? Or are there small teams trundling around just breaking even and they're fine with that? I don't know. Is there a correlation between the two series?
Yeah, I mean, it's more likely you can achieve it here to a degree. You run one car versus two. You have a tight knit group that you keep happy. You can work at a smaller level, but you walk around the paddock here and you see Penske, and they're a massive. And they've got a lot of people there, and each person is very fine tuned in what their position is. When you get down to the GT ranks, you need someone with more depth that can work different positions, not just left rear tire person, that kind of thing. So you need a bit more in that direction. But Gene, but the example is set. It takes investment and looking ahead and to actually see improvement, and we've seen it with Aston Martin, we've seen it with Williams. I mean, but you have to have the right guys on board to persuade the people with the money that their money's going to be well spent, right? Yeah. I mean, James jumps in, Fry jumps in. It's like they're people with knowledge, and if they have to sell the story that this is going to be beneficial, and you see with Aston Martin that they did put a lot of investment in, and it is coming up trumps in the end. So for Gene to think he needs to see a positive improvement without that is naive, I feel. And as I said, you don't need your team to prove to you. You need the history of racing, to prove to you that that's what it takes. And you cannot expect to just trundle around at a low budget and expect miracles. It just doesn't happen. We've seen some teams turn things around for sure. Pretty miraculously, I'd say McLaren have done it, Aston Martin have done it, but those, and Williams, for instance, but you still need the support and something moving forward to even think that those teams are can change things around and move their performance further up the grid. And it's someone's got to persuade him differently, because I can't see, what do they say? Insanity is doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different result. That's kind of what he's asking for, a different result. Without changing things radically in the team, right? It's not, you're building within. It's the same people then, Gene. If you want to change, you either change the people, or you change the budget, or you change the plan. But not changing anything is going to achieve the same result you've already got.
Yeah, which is why I was advocating a change at Gunther's level for the last couple of years. Right, you got to change something, And and it brings up a point that I was thinking about these teams, investments, those kind of things. And since we started the podcast talking about Aston Martin and Heart of Racing, let's stick with Aston Martin. Talk about Williams and Haas. But then I was thinking about Aston Martin's new home. I read an article over at Autosport. And when you consider Aston Martin's new investment, their new HQ, their new focus on racing, it's unlike Haas, or to be fair, it's unlike Williams too. I mean, Lawrence has put a lot of investment in this program. With that in mind, team boss Mike Crack says that moving into the new HQ is no excuse. And he told this to Autosport. Autosport had the story. And he said, quote, "At the beginning of the year, we had these good results. I always had my finger up and said, we will have more difficult times. And they came, unfortunately, but much quicker than we wanted them." And he said this to Autosport. And then Autosport posited that he suggested that the large-scale infrastructure changes might have been a distraction, but said that wasn't really a justification. And he continued the quote saying, "I'm not the kind of guy that looks for excuses. We knew before that we would move. We knew before that we were expanding. We knew before that we were still growing. So if you know that before, you can plan all of these things and should not use it as an excuse. It's too easy. When we started the season, we were confident that we had made a good step forward, and we were surprised that others were struggling. But then the competition started to improve, and we did not manage this improvement. We also had our upgrades, but we never made such big steps with our upgrades as our competition did. This resulted in others and the other slipping behind. So the gap to the fastest car, which was the objective that we are using, has not changed that much over the season. But now there are 3 or 4 different teams in between, whereas in the beginning there was none. He said in closing, he said, so it's basically what has the competition done and what have we not done, but having too much on our plate, that doesn't matter. And I got to thinking about that, and it's a noble comment. He was saying, look, yeah, we knew it's a new HQ and all that. It's no excuse. Bottom line is we got outdeveloped. And that's what happened. But I got to thinking about this in terms of when we're talking about Haas, we're talking about Williams. And Paul, while you don't work directly for Aston Martin, you've seen their investment in their F1 program, and you've also seen their investment in GT racing and their evolution in GT racing. And I wanted to ask you about having that HQ, those facilities, those tools, that machinery, that infrastructure. There's got to be a part of this, which would be similar in IMSA for like a Penske operation versus a small one. Those kind of operations, that kind of serious investment has to lure the best and brightest engineers and other racing industry professionals across the board. With a cost cap, I wonder if even Aston Martin's GT program at their HQ is luring, the better engineers, better facilities, better amenities. It's something I wonder about when it comes to the entire package. In the tech business that I'm in, I can tell you there are a few companies I know that if they were not in Silicon Valley and the kind of facilities they would have a hard time luring any of the best software engineers, et cetera. And I wonder if that has a play in Aston Martin's view of their facilities and investment commitment. When you compare what Lawrence is putting in, maybe he's financially in a different position to Gene, of course, but that kind of investment has to suggest that I'm going for the best. I'm going out for the best engineers, the best teams, and that has to play a part. And I wonder if that's sort of what James Vowles is saying. Williams and Dorilton have to invest. We've got to get the infrastructure. Last year, he said, we don't have the machinery we need. We need that machinery, not only to perform better, but to lure better people, to lure better investment. How do you see that from an Aston Martin standpoint?
Yeah, as you say, it was a noble statements, right? About, there's no excuses. Well, okay, yeah, you can plan everything, but there's going to be a little blip in there, obviously with the transition. But the thought process should be, even if there's a blip, there's a much greener grass on the other side, and it's going to pay back dividends. So even if we slip back one pace, we're going to move forward 3 for the future, and it does help. It helps everything. With that kind of investment, now they're developing our hypercar that we're going to be racing, right? That's coming directly from the same headquarters as the Formula One team. It's all going to help bring the right people in, all the people in racing, mechanics, everyone wants to win, and they want to have the resources that allow them to do their job the best. Yeah, sure. Some people like to be the underdog, but no one also wants to, go to a gunfight with a knife, right? They're not able to stretch their wings. They're not allowed to be the best that they can be. So if you see that bright, shiny building with all the tools you can utilize to be a part of something that's ongoing, building up, then it's going to lure those kind of people. And then, maybe on the lower end, the Haas, if they're not upgrading things, they're going to get the people that maybe didn't quite make it at the higher end people, because you've got an infrastructure of people coming in with higher levels. Well, it's not always just adding people. Sometimes they've got to let those people go, and those people will trickle down, and end up at Haas because they've got nowhere else to go. So it can have a snowball effect and make you less competitive as you move on. So, it didn't seem that long ago that Aston announced that building, and now it's up and going, and everything's progressing. And yeah, it's paying dividends for the F1 team, but it also gives them resources for all their racing, and that is just going to actually keep building it out. They're going to have more and more reasons to expand, because they're going to become more successful. They're going to bring in more successful people, and that's going to bring more teams who want to race Aston Martins, etc. So it definitely has a building up effect there that has to be quantified. And Williams, once again, yeah, a lot of people stuck around. And even we saw the show with Braun, right? So a lot of people let go. Some people hung on, not getting paid, etc. They're just so long. Someone can handle that. And so, yeah, I don't understand the Haas. He's been there long enough. He came in a bit naive, I think. We were even saying, "Well, you go buy Marussia." You know, why rip up the page and think you can start again? And now, whatever he built is already aged, and he needs to either reinvest or get out. Really, I feel.
This isn't in my show notes, so I'm going to throw you a curveball, Paul. In the last podcast, Grace and I talked about it, and I've been watching racing quite a while, and I just went back and checked my memory on this. I know DeLara, does well, obviously in IndyCar, they do the chassis and F2, F3, but they don't have a ripe history of success in Formula One, of winning championships, winning races. DeLara never has. Right?
No, right.
And I think even when Haas came out and they were doing the listed parts program, and Grace and I talked about this, but I'm curious what your thought. At some point, I kind of felt like if Gene's gonna have a success and try to go for race wins and those kind of things, he almost kind of has to do a Frank Williams. You may have got started in Formula One buying a chassis, but at some point you're going to have to make your own. Do you feel like DeLara becomes a hindrance to Gene at some point?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a ceiling there. I mean, if you've got a team like Mercedes, like Ferrari, that everything, all the resources going for the Formula car team, and then you've got DeLara, who are building spec chassis all over the world for all kinds of different things. They can't do it all and be fully focused on Formula One. I think they're spread pretty thin. They got resources for sure, but it's not the same thing. And yeah, technically, Gene's driving a customer car, even though customer cars aren't allowed, right? It's a spec'd out car from a different manufacturer. But that takes investment. And it just doesn't seem like Gene's ready to start. That seemed like that was a good stopgap. I think it was. But yeah, by this point, I feel like they should have moved on to building and designing their own program, start bringing in the right people. But seems Gene just kind of wants to kind of leave it as it is, which is probably very affordable for him in comparison to reinvestment into building your own chassis and building premises and everything like that. But it also, he has to be realistic that that's the results that are going to come from that.
Yeah. And there, and meanwhile, you have Toto Wolff, hedging on the whole Michael Andretti thing, and even Gunther saying, well, but wait a minute, they really need to prove what they'd bring to Formula One and how they'd increase Formula One's revenue by their presence and blah, 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 which I argued at the time. Nobody asked Haas that when he joined Formula One. Nobody demanded that. And I would say at this point, I feel like Andretti would bring, bringing more investment than what Gene is. And
presence. They're bringing along than a couple of teams on the grid are doing right now. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my feeling. So anyway, let's see. Other news this week in Formula Mercedes, they did re-sign or extended Toto Wolff's contract another 3 years. They also announced that they signed James Allison to a long-term deal too. So now they've got, this is my knee-jerk, this is my gut reaction on this, folks. Great for Toto and James, smart guy. So they've got Toto now, long-term, James long-term, and for 2 or 3 years, and Lewis.
Yeah. It feels a bit like Ferrari and Schumacher, doesn't it? The Jean Todt show. It's like,
and I was just going to say, Paul, so now they have Lewis, Toto, and James focus on getting Lewis a title. If I was George at this point, I'd be seriously looking for another opportunity. I really would. I mean, Christian, is Checo giving you some heartburn over there? I got to be honest with you. I just feel like that's all wrapped up. Toto, Lewis, James are all wrapped up and focus on that 8th title. Yeah. It's a tough position for George.
It is a tough. But where can he go that he's going to be? He needs to be a number one. He can't. He doesn't want to go from a number 2 to a number 2 position. I think he feels probably he's got enough support in the team where if you go to Red Bull, it's definitely Max's team. Maybe the car can win more races individually for him, but they're never gonna. Max is going to be there for a long time, and they're going to be supporting for a long time. He's just kind of in a place he can't get out of right now unless something changes. I think ideally for him, Ferrari would be the best choice because there's questions both with Charles and with Carlos. I think that there's more potential that he could see going in there and putting his feet on the desk, as you like to say, and showing that he's the man that's going to take Ferrari somewhere else, right? I would say that's his best opportunity. Whether they would give it to him or not, I don't know. But I don't see anyone wanting to go to Red Bull apart from someone that isn't in one of those top 3 teams right now and sees that as a gateway to something else,
Yeah, I agree with you. Very tough situation for him. Also in the news, I saw that Zach Brown brought up his concerns again about Red Bull owning 2 teams, the A team and the B team. And he was saying, I'm paraphrasing here. I don't want to put words in Zach's mouth. I'm paraphrasing about what he said, but I thought it was kind of interesting. He was basically saying, look, he feels like, a group that owns 2 teams in Formula One, like Red Bull and AlphaTauri is a conflict of interests, and it threatens the integrity of the sport having one group owning 2 teams. And, probably a big, I don't know Zach well enough to know his thoughts on Red Bull or Christian Horner, but I think his point is, and as you mentioned at the beginning before we started recording, it's not so much that he's worried about AlphaTauri, as you said. He's more worried about what AlphaTauri can provide in R&D and research to Red Bull, right?
Yeah, I mean the budget cap is important, right? So if you can spread that, get a little bit extra from AlphaTauri to kind of support the Red Bull team, I think that's very powerful. But it used to be a time when basically the AlphaTauri or Toro Rosso was last year's Red Bull, literally the same car, and so I don't see it as anything new. So I guess I don't understand the outrage. Yes, they kind of tried to split them a little bit, and Haas has kind of allowed them to maybe come back a little closer just by keeping their standardized parts kind of process still on board. But if you're Red Bull, why would you do anything any different? Why wouldn't you do exactly what they're doing? And hey, if Zach wants to start another team, to go do it, right? They created this process for themselves, and they deserve the benefits of it, quite honestly. And it seemed a little weird when they kind of started separating a little bit. What's the point in that? Maybe it was to do with, training people to not be, have this safety net of the Red Bull technical staff and trying to elevate people in their own individual rights and see who really shines. But in the big scheme of things, we've seen Toro Rosso go up and down. It's like, why don't we just bring them a little closer? And they can maybe sometimes be a little bit of a benefit on the track, but definitely a resources split down there is really going to help the Red Bull team be even stronger.
Yeah. It's interesting. And we've often said, it's really those customer teams of the engine power unit. So you get Mercedes, who has McLaren, who has Williams, right? You had Ferrari, which had Alfa Romeo, Sauber, and Haas, and Red Bull. Now they're rolling their own over there with Red Bull and AlphaTauri or whatever their new name will be. So, there certainly is some connections via customer. And Gene talks about how much help Ferrari has been to them in their operation and everything. So I don't know if Zach is working in a vacuum and Mercedes dumps off an engine and the communication stops. But certainly feels threatened by the fact that Red Bull has 2 teams and 2 cost caps to work within. And maybe.
Yeah. And then because McLaren have become competitors and are rightful competitors against Mercedes, they're probably not receiving, as much information as they'd like, but that doesn't work the same way with Toro Rosso, right? Or whatever they're going to be called.
Yeah. Right. Well, good points. Let's see. Before we back out of the podcast, I did have some no shit headlines that I thought were kind of funny that I did want to share with the listeners here. I got my first one I thought was funny was Lewis Hamilton slammed by F1 veteran amid claim Max Verstappen saved the sport.
I thought he's destroying the sport. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
I thought he's ruined everything.
Goodness gracious! I thought he ruined the sport, and he was the reason people were leaving F1 in droves. So, I like this chap's glass half full approach there. Let's see. Oh, next one is Damon Hill's son had F1 dream, but quit racing and now works in Grand Prix hospitality. And I say, good on him. Not everyone's a Formula One driver.
No.
Not everyone, Damon, is Graham Hill, right? Graham Hill
Your
just
buddy.
had that.
You just love Damon. You just love any opportunity to bring up Damon.
Yeah, not everybody has that je ne sais quoi that Graham. Admit it, Paul. The snidely whiplash mustache, the Speedos poolside. Graham had a certain panache, did he not?
He definitely was an original. Yes, he was.
He was an original.
Yeah. That's
for sure. Did you ever get a chance to see him drive, like any historics or anything over in the UK?
Did I see Graham drive? I don't think I. Well, yeah, I did, because wasn't he still driving in like 75?
Yeah,
but by that it was the very much the tail end, right? So it was like, why is this old guy driving out there?
Right.
When he had this Embassy Hill team and everything like that. But so just a little bit, but not at his high peak for sure.
No, right.
Yeah.
Did you ever get a chance to see Sterling Moss drive at any exhibitions?
Yeah. He drove like saloon cars and things like that a little bit. Yeah, so definitely saw old Sterling. He was always out and about. He was quite a presence there,
Yeah. I was curious. All 3 of us share a birthday, September 17th, and that's why I asked if you get to see him, because you clearly have had the benefit of seeing me drive. So I was wondering if
benefit.
So
I still wonder what the hell I was doing. Volunteering for that job, but
you were taking your life in your own hands there.
I was.
Let's see, one more that of those. Drive to Survive and F1 legend says the headline. Gunther Steiner set to give bombshell interview after shock Haas sacking. So I thought, boy, Gunther, he's not going to wait too long. He's got to figure out a way to get back in front of those cameras. And I don't know
he's just going to push that presence. Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, he's always like, "Oh, I don't care. I didn't even watch the show." And now it's like it's going to be his be all and everything. Quite honestly, it's gonna.
It is. He's got to figure it out.
He'll be leading. He'll be doing game shows. Who knows?
Yeah. I say give him time. Sky Sports will pick him up because they want to ride whatever wave of popularity he has. They'll ride that horse into the ground.
They are definitely going to bring the Gunther into the booth. I promise you that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see him, puttering around the grid with a Sky microphone. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
yeah.
All right. Well, Paul, best of luck next weekend, my friend.
Thank you.
The Rolex 24. Be hard to repeat last year's performance, but a big win last year. Did Ian ever let you wear his Rolex? I was just curious.
No, never. No, barely even let me look at it,
man.
Yeah, I know.
Sad.
I should. Maybe I'll get one of the other drivers to let me try it on.
Friends forever.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I've not asked, mind you, but my watch. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, the good thing about this race, it's a big race to win, and we won it, and that's awesome. But I'm still driven by championships, and so this is race 1 of the season of 11 races that we've got to do on IMSA, and so thing is just even if it doesn't go all roses, we've got 10 more races to catch up. So
yeah, right. How's Ian feeling about it? Is he in good spirits?
He's in good spirits. It's when things aren't going well, you don't sit there and go, oh well, it'll be okay. You have to be proactive and try and fix the problems, right? So that's what we're doing. We've got 3 days between being on the track again. So right now we're stirring the pot and trying to fix all the woes, so we can roll into weekend in a bit stronger position. So
you wound Ian up and you let him go.
He's going. Yeah, I don't need to wind him up. He winds himself up pretty well. Yeah,
That's good. Excellent. All right. Well, folks, tune in next weekend at the Rolex 24. You get to watch harder racing and cheer Paul and that team on to. And
if you come into the race, say hi. I may not have much time, but I always like just wave to me. Hey, for me.
Yeah, right.
Like, all right.
Yeah. Paul will be so busy this year, he won't have time to carry around those 8x10 glossies that he autographs for people.
It is a busier week, that's for sure. Yeah,
for busy. Sure. Excellent. Well, best of luck next weekend. Thanks for squeezing in a podcast this week. We appreciate giving the update on your progress and everything and sharing your thoughts.
Welcome.
And I will be back next weekend. I'll go find Grace. We'll come back and we'll talk about some F1 news. So until that time, this is Todd, aka Negative Camera, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
I don't feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out what it was like to drive a car fast, to drive on a certain circuit, to drive a certain